what I found is most people, one of the spouses is keeping track of it. The other spouse really doesn't have a clue what the bills are. So we are always telling people, let's get both parties involved here and make sure that we understand, what the bills are and how we're going to get there.
And welcome into the program. This is Protect and Grow Chicagoland Retirement with Chicagoland's certified financial planning professional, Tim Stearns, CFP, here to talk about your money, your investments, your finance, and your plan for retirement, how to get all of those things together, heading in the right direction so you can create and maintain financial confidence, lasting financial confidence into and throughout retirement. And of course, TJ Stearns Inc. is the home of the Protect and Grow Written Retirement Blueprint. Tim, that blueprint starts with some instructions, and today we are going to overview one of your countdown to retirement guides. This is a pretty comprehensive list of different guides. It includes the 8 moments to move your money, the 6 financial myths, the three biggest expenses in retirement, and how to plan to control them. But today, I'm going to go in depth on the 10 steps to prepare for retirement. I'm glad you've put all of these guides together and have them as a resource, though, Tim.
Well, Peter, the best thing about these is that people come in here very confused and not knowing how to get through a 25 to 30 year plus retirement. And by giving them kind of lockstep what we need to do to get there, it really helps them. The one guy I just met the other day said, he hadn't slept well for the months leading up to when we finally got his plan together. And that was based on him finally freeing up some time to meet with us. But at the end of the day, having a plan is going to be fruitful for all parties.
The plan is the confidence, right? That is where your confidence is derived.
Agreed.
Well, in these guides, Tim, again, available if people would like the complete countdown or one of the guides, the 9 critical risks to address, 7 financial myths, 6 core issues that every plan should address, the 5 planning mistakes to avoid, all the way down to the number 1 factor determining retirement success. If they would like those countdown guides, they can just give you a call there at TJ Stearns Inc. 800-640-2256. That is 800-640-2256. 800-640-2256. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that is also the number to begin the conversation about getting your own personalized Protect and Grow written retirement blueprint, which will, of course, address all of the issues that are addressed in this comprehensive set of guides, the Countdown to Retirement. So again, 800-640-2256 to start your planning session with Tim Stearns, CFP. And you can also go to tjstearns.com, tjstearns.com. Tim, 10 steps. I like checklists. It makes sure we don't forget or overlook anything, right? So the 10 steps to prepare for retirement, if somebody has addressed all 10 of these, they probably have a good head start in really being financially prepared and in achieving that lasting sense of financial confidence.
I agree with that. I think a big thing I'm seeing right now is people have this almost like a greed factor that they're trying to get to a certain level of amount of money in their portfolio, and they're, recipe for disaster really with all the risk they're putting on the table. So what if we could take a step back and show them that you don't need to hit a certain amount. We just need to figure out what your budget is, and all these other different things that go along with that. And it's a starting point, to make them feel better. But I would think that if I realized I'd already climbed the mountain of whatever amount that I want to try to get, I don't need to take all this undue risk. And we're seeing that a lot.
You think people are taking too much risk right now?
Exactly. And, I'm seeing that, and, it doesn't make any sense. People who I know are conservative, they'll bring in other portfolios that I'm not in charge of, and they're getting crazy with them. And I just figure, why don't we make a Protect and Grow blueprint? And then after that, you can see that you've already climbed the mountain. You don't have to do that. We want to retain what you've made.
Well, again, if you would like to assess the amount of risk that you are taking, it's a good time now, right? The time to make that assessment, Tim, is toward the top of the mountain, not when we are already heading downward, right? That is something that you can do with people, though, is help them better understand and quantify the amount of risk in their portfolio.
Right. And that's part and parcel of what we do for people when we're doing a protect and grow blueprint. So, let's dive into it. I mean, where do we start, right? A lot of people come in here just in such a, you know, they're disgruntled because they don't know how to do it. They've never retired. Let's be clear about that. So, how do you do it? Well, number one, we would start with defining a budget. And we have many people who come in here and go, oh, I thought I'd be spending much less money in my retirement and that type of thing. But at the end of the day, utility bills still come. You're still having gas, bills. You're driving, you've clothing, food, all that stuff. So defining your budget is where we start at first, just to get a line item budget together so we can know that we're going to hit the mark and what that mark needs to be.
Yep. So, do you feel like people really understand where their money is going and how much they are spending to the level that they should, Tim? I'll put a caveat on this is that when we're making a more comfortable kind of income, which is, I imagine, the majority of the clients that you serve there during their working career, at least, are probably making maybe comparatively a more comfortable kind of income. Perhaps we don't pinch every penny and stretch every dollar and pay as much attention to this as we should.
Right. And what I found is most people, one of the spouses is keeping track of it. The other spouse really doesn't have a clue what the bills are. So we are always telling people, let's get both parties involved here and make sure that we understand, what the bills are and how we're going to get there.
Yeah. And Tim, is there any help or assistance? Like, do you use any kind of budgeting apps, or what is the process for getting a better handle on our budget if we have maybe not paid as much attention to it?
Well, that's the beauty of it. We make it easy, and the easy part is we have a fillable form that they can, it's got. I always kid people, it's got everything but the kitchen sink on there of what your possible bills and assets and everything could be. The more information people give us that's correct, the better the plan. And we put every single item on there so we can figure out, is it 10,500 or is it 11,000 that you need per month? What about your property tax bill? People sometimes forget certain things, and maybe the wife does it, maybe the husband does it, but if we have both parties involved, it's going to be a darn good budget that we can figure out what they actually need in retirement.
Right. And so, Tim, this is where it begins, defining the budget, getting a grip on what we're spending. $1,000 one month probably doesn't make or break us, but if it is every month, month in, month out, over the years and the decades of retirement, that is going to make a substantial difference in how much we need to generate that income. And of course, we want to try to generate as much as we are going to need to cover our living expenses and our lifestyle. So defining that budget, getting a better handle on that. And then, Tim, we start the math of really planning for how to cover that. Step 9, define your sources of guaranteed income.
It's very interesting because we have people come in and they don't, one of the spouses usually doesn't have a clue what they're going to be receiving from Social Security, which is, usually is supposed to be about 40% of your income coming in. It's kind of important. So a lot of times we've had to show people how do you get online at ssa.gov to get an account started so that you can get these statements. So those are what we start with next after the budget is looking for guaranteed sources of income.
And
That would
pensions
be
if we're lucky
pension.
enough to have one, right? Yeah.
Exactly. That'd be pensions, if you worked as a fireman, a fire or a policeman, what have you, or if, Social Security, most everyone that I know is getting that, then that makes sense too, that we want to know exactly what the guaranteed income is.
Number 8, define your income gap. So here's more math, right, Tim? Is that we're figuring out what's the difference between what we're spending and what we're going to get from those guaranteed sources.
Right. And there usually is quite an income gap, and especially when you figure, there's health insurance and there's, other things that could happen, long-term care. But at the end of the day, you take the budget of what they're making and then minus the amount that you're getting in guaranteed income, and that tells us exactly what the income gap is. We're not reinventing the wheel, but we are holding people accountable so that they know exactly what they're going to need income wise.
Well, and again, I think that a lot of people kind of make this decision and make this leap into retirement, Tim, without fully thinking these things through. So this is not, like you said, reinventing the wheel or rocket science or brain surgery or any of those things. But this is something to remind yourself, ladies and gentlemen, that you are going to leave that paycheck behind. And how do you create the kind of financial security that the paycheck that your hard work once created? You've got to move through these 10 steps to truly prepare for retirement. And this checklist is a great resource to make sure that you don't forget any critical, important steps along the way and that you've addressed some of these what if things. And again, if you would like this list, the 10 steps to prepare for retirement, just give TJ Stearns Inc. and Tim Stearns CFP a call, 800-640-2256. That's 800-640-2256. So Tim, once we look at that income gap and we've defined that, there's kind of two ways to improve it, right? On one side, we could spend less. And a lot of people don't want to do that in retirement. So on the other side, we could generate more. And here's where there is oftentimes room for improvement is that a lot of people haven't sat down and really thought through all of the scenarios on Social Security and optimized their plan on how to generate, when to time and claim and collect the Social Security to generate the most, which can be several hundreds of thousands of dollars of difference over the course of retirement. And the same for pensions if we're lucky enough to have them.
One of the other things that to your point is strategizing on Social Security. It's not one size fits all. You know, if I turn 62, yes, I can take it, but should I? When I turn 67, I can take it at my full retirement age. Should I? Or should I wait till 70? I have all those options. And, you know, there's a lot of people come in here with preconceived ideas. And that's what's great about our software. We can optimize their Social Security and show them what is going to be best for both, you know, spouses, or if it's an individual, when it works for them. But you want to make sure you put 35 years at least into your Social Security. Take the time to look into it. When does it make sense to pull the trigger and not just leave money on the table?
Yeah. For a married couple, Tim, just claiming like on full year intervals on their birthdays, that's 81 potential combinations before you get into claiming it, you know, halfway through the year or what month, and before you get into any of the advanced strategies. So there's a lot more to Social Security than most people realize before diving in. And you help people run a full analysis on the different ways to get more from those benefits and help coordinate the benefits to maximize the lifetime income. That is going to be a helpful piece of the foundation for the retirement income, minimizing to your point on number 8 on this countdown list, define your income gap. If you get more from Social Security, you're minimizing that income gap as well. A lot less stress on the portfolio. And that's where you begin to formulate the income plan, number 6 on the list.
Right. And when you formulate that income plan, it's actually easier than it sounds, is that we need to figure out what vehicle is going to give you the best guaranteed income. You know, and it could be anything from an annuity, you know, dividends, you know, or appreciation in a certain mutual fund. But what we try to do is show people, I like guaranteed income. That's so important to me because I don't want to worry about the stock market day in and day out. I see people doing that, you know, and oh my gosh, do you see what happened in the market? You know, yeah, I don't want to have my clients worried about that type of thing. So guaranteed income to shore up that income gap that you have is so important to me. And that's what we do.
If we are reliant on the market, Tim, everything sort of looks like it works out great as long as the market is doing well and going up. But the market doesn't always do that. It's not always reliable that we are going to have positive returns like we've seen the last couple years. If we flash back 3 years to 2022, a good example, that year was down pretty significantly. If we've got our affairs structured in such a way that all of our income is reliant on those investments, that can be a pretty tense and agonizing experience for a retiree to see a down market when that's the source of our income.
And you're speaking of sequence of returns risk right there. If I retire in my first couple of years into a bear market, things might be tough going. And if I'm lucky enough to go into a bull market, I'll probably be okay, but that would just be dumb luck. So to my point here is I'm saying you need to understand your risk exposure. When we're teaching our classes, and I said this on the radio, you cannot just invest like you're 40. You're not anymore. And these things of last couple of years, like in 2022, when the market dropped, but it bounced back, or the tariffs, it dropped, but it bounced back. What if it doesn't? And what if we have another one of these lost decades that we saw from 2000 and 2010? We need to make sure that we understand what risk exposure we have. And I don't think most people do. And we'll actually take them through an exercise to figure that out, just to make sense of it so that they understand why I want them to retain the money and not take undue risk.
Going back to quantifying the amount of risk in the portfolio,
Yes.
Tim, something that a lot of people haven't seen is like, well, how have all of these collection of funds and investments performed in previous downturns? And we would sort of expect them to behave the same way if we saw another downturn. Can the plan survive that? Can your financial well-being survive a downturn if we continue on taking the same level of risk that got us here, right? And what got us here, Tim, isn't necessarily the correct thing to get us through that next phase once the paycheck is no longer supporting our bill paying ability and our ability to invest.
Right. So you need to make sure you understand exactly where you stand with your portfolio. If you know that you have a lot of risk and you're okay with it, and I can't dissuade you, then that's what it is. But that's something that needs to be really talked about, because I don't think many people are. I think everyone's figuring that they're going to miss out on something if they get out of the stock market. And I'm not telling people to get out of the stock market altogether.
I was going to say is you're not against
No.
investing or the growth potential of the market. You've
Nope.
got access to that. You help people manage it properly.
And what I was going to say is my 95-year-old mother is still in the stock market. I mean, where else will I beat inflation? So, I mean, and that's one of the most important things to us, is that as long as people understand what they're taking on.
Yeah, but a lot of those that are on the doorstep or even already in retirement, Tim, are still investing as though they are like 30-year-olds with all the time in the world to allow whatever market conditions may occur to
Yep.
recover. When in reality, that's not generally how we should be invested at that phase.
I think people have lost sight of what the market can actually do. And I mean that to the bad side. So, I'm running into advisors that have never seen a bear market, and you and I have, 31 years on the job. We've seen all kinds of things. So, I would use my gray hair to tell you not to have all your money in the stock market.
Right. So again, we're counting down the 10 steps to prepare for retirement. They are all summarized nicely on a checklist for you, ladies and gentlemen. If you would like to get a copy of these 10 steps to prepare, pick up the phone, give Tim Stearns, CFP, and TJ Stearns Inc. a call, 800-640-2256. That is 800-640-2256. Next on your list, Tim, number 4. This is a big one that we take advantage of certain types of accounts and the ability to defer and delay taxes in many of our retirement investment options. But then we sort of forget that we must eventually pay those taxes. So consider taxes carefully is number 4 in these 10 steps.
When I ask people in our classes, what is your number one bill going to be in retirement? Hands down, they always say medical costs, long-term care, stuff like that.
Potentially.
It,
I mean, that does
it
have the
could be,
potential of
but
being a big bill, right?
and that's potentially. We look at ones that are going to be a real burden on you, and it's taxes. Most baby boomers we're talking to right now have kicked the can down the street as long as their careers have been there. So they've never paid taxes on the IRAs and the 401ks they have. And they're going to have to live. So calculate your taxes would be the next one that we would do with people. We run our tax impact report, and we make sure that people understand exactly what they're getting themselves into if they don't do any Roth conversions, or putting money into a Roth. So calculating taxes, which is going to be your number one bill, is very, very important.
And you've got that That report is part of the Countdown to Retirement series, Tim.
Of course.
The number 3 is your 3 biggest expenses in retirement, how to plan to control them. And it talks about the taxes are your largest known expense, healthcare, your largest potential expense, and then inflation being the silent thief is kind of a de facto tax as well. But a lot of people, Tim, you've made mention of this on the program many times, can tell you with pretty precise accuracy how much they have in their retirement accounts. But almost no one can tell you with the same degree of confidence how much they are going to end up paying in taxes on those accounts. And that's what your retirement tax bill calculator is there for. It is online, ladies and gentlemen. You can see it for yourself at mvpcfp.com. mvpcfp.com is the online retirement tax bill calculator where you can see your numbers side by side. And oftentimes it can show you that the potential for saving on taxes is there and can be substantial. So if you'd like to find out more after you see the numbers for yourself of how to execute on strategies efficiently and effectively to control and minimize that tax bill, then give Tim Stearns a call. But the website again is mvpcfp.com, or you can call and get that guidance personalized at 800-640-2256, 800-640-2256. Tim, you've sort of coined a pun here, is the gross planning mistake. A lot of people plan for retirement on gross numbers. It's not the gross number that is our livable income. It is the net number, and we can't forget about those taxes.
Well, that's why that mvpcfp.com website's so important, because it is some cold water on someone's face to realize how much that money is actually going to be yours at the end of the day.
And number 3 on the list, Tim, consolidate like qualified accounts. This is a little bit of housekeeping to make life easier. We've all heard of the importance of diversification, but in fact, consolidating accounts often helps with our diversification.
Exactly. The other thing we've seen is that people have, their old 401ks at companies, and they're paying upwards of 3% to have their money over there. And they'll say, no, it only costs what I have in the fund. That's not correct at all. And I'll give you the analogy that I tell them. If you can call at 7:00 at night to get a hold of someone in your 401k company, they're paying them. No one works for free. And guess what? That gets transferred over to the participants. So we're telling people, if you have 401ks here, there, and everywhere, or IRAs at different companies, you're paying fees. Let's get it all into one account that's an IRA, one account that's a Roth, and one that's a joint or an individual account, depending on your circumstances, and off we go. And it just consolidates everything, makes things simpler, and more than likely will cut your fees.
So many benefits there, as well as just making life simpler to track a fewer accounts. And money left behind often doesn't get the time and attention that it deserves. Maybe it could be doing more for you. So number 3, consolidate those like qualified accounts and simplify life a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. Number 2, Tim, consider inflation. A lot of people's projections for retirement sort of assume they're going to be spending the same thing 10 years from now that they're spending today. The likelihood of costs going up is almost 100%.
With inflation, historically being at 3%, your dollar needs to double every 24 years. I'm just using the simple rule of 72. You take what interest is going to be, inflation is going to be, it's 3% divided into 72, and it's 24. So every 24 years, our dollar needs to double. And why is that? Because of our friend inflation. And again, like you said, we call it the silent thief. We want to make sure people understand that your dollar today, 24 years from now, needs to be $2. And with that, you just look at gas prices and housing and all that things. People are well aware of it. They just don't want to price it into their plan, and we have to do that.
Yeah. And inflation, we've certainly seen our fair share, but 1 year of 9% inflation, Tim, that's painful. But we also have to remember that a decade where every year is on average 3% increases prices significantly as well. And inflation is a continuous and ongoing thing. Number 1 on your list here, Tim, another item that is commonly overlooked, often forgotten about, or just kind of ignored: review and update your legal documents. We do not do this nearly enough.
No, in fact, I've run into people through this radio show that still had their ex-wife or husband as their beneficiaries because they hadn't updated their legal documents, or they have a trust that says something different than what their beneficiaries are on their IRAs. So those are all things that, we try to tell people. If you look at this fact, 6 out of 10 Americans have not done proper estate planning. And that tells you a lot. And it should be looked at every 5 years because you might have a trustee on there, an executor that has passed away or you don't talk to anymore. All these things need to be updated, or at least that you have them so that you don't go through the dreaded thing called probate, which in Cook County can last on average about 2 years.
And be rather costly to the estate. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, this is the 10 steps to prepare for retirement. Define the budget, define your sources of income, define your income gaps, strategize on Social Security, formulate the income plan, understand the risk exposure to your assets, consider taxes, consolidate like qualified accounts, consider inflation, review and update your legal documents. And if any of those have been forgotten or overlooked, you do not have as firm a foundation as you could have for your lasting financial confidence. So make sure to address all of those. If you would like the list, in fact, this is one out of several lists in the Countdown to Retirement guide. So if you would like the full Countdown to Retirement or this 10 steps to prepare for retirement, the first in the series, pick up the phone and give TJ Stearns Inc. and Tim Stearns CFP a call, 800-640-2256. That's 800-640-2256. And TJ Stearns Inc. is the home of the Protect and Grow Written Retirement Blueprint. It can be found only there at TJ Stearns Inc. It is a personalized plan with long-term vision, diversified strategies on how to help you achieve your lasting life and financial goals. And if you would like to get that process started to get your own personalized Protect and Grow blueprint, again, the number to call, 800-640-2256, 800-640-2256. Tim, always a pleasure having you here on the program on Protect and Grow with us, helping so many Chicagoland area savers and investors and proactive planners achieve those goals. So many more need the help, and that's why you are here, and we appreciate your time.
Peter, it's my pleasure. I look forward to talking to you again.
Tune into Chicagoland certified financial planner Tim Stearns' full radio program and visit tjstearns.com for many valuable resources, including other great episodes of Chicagoland Retirement. Be sure to subscribe.
Investment advisory services offered through Cornerstone Securities, LLC. The information presented on this program is provided for informational purposes only without warranty of accuracy, completeness, or suitability for particular purpose. This program is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. This information is general in nature, not specific enough to be construed as advice. You should not make any decision based on the information presented on this program without independent consultation with an appropriately licensed professional or competent advisor. Investment in securities or the market involves a potential risk for loss of principal. Trading, therefore, may not be suitable for all listeners. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Withdrawals of growth from annuities may be taxable as ordinary income in the year it is taken. Individuals should review contracts for specific details of the product's features and costs.